Dzień dobry, ja spróbuję tak już
Ladies and gentlemen, I try to briefly sum up this conference and give to you some additional information on what you have discussed earlier. We spoke on some theoretical measurements on the equipment that has been purchased, and now at last we can show you some initial results of practical measurements that were actually conducted in Krakow. I will skip some of the initial slides as those issues have been discussed already. We've got three novel approaches here for individual measurements to be done. I will speak about some characteristics about what the results are actually at homes and at selected schools in Krakow. As for those new methods we're applying, is a special device that is available here in the Regional Inspectorate for Environment Protection. We've got a map of base stations for mobile telephones for Krakow and special mobile measurement devices, dosimeters, popularly called. It's actually a name that goes back to the French producers. French equipment, and we're actually very happy with what we have so far. Those portable devices have GPS location also can be linked to the measurements, so we don't know exactly where the measurements are taken. This is what the devices look like, and here we have a map of base stations. Those maps are available on our website for all local residents. Here, as you can see, it is possible also to check the main directions and the output power of the base stations. Here you cannot see it very well perhaps in this slide, but actually it's a 17,000 watts along one direction. This is the main market square in Krakow with the cloth hall in the middle, this long building. Now very briefly, here we have the portable device. The model name is EME SPY 200. It actually measures and identifies sources with 20 different frequencies. It's for the first time that we can identify actually in households whether we have signals from base stations, downlink, or other devices related to the mobile phones of local residents, with a division into all possible parts of the spectrum that are actually used in Poland. The first scope of measurements from 80 megahertz to 6 gigahertz, calibrated equipment. We've got enough financial resources needed for calibration in the city budget. As for the sampling time, it's from 4 seconds, but actually we wanted to make it longer. In practice, we wanted to do measurements every 20 seconds within 24 hours. And yes, I can admit that the small battery actually is adequate for such measurements every 20 seconds over a period of 24 hours. There's also a bag, as you can see here in this slide, that is made available to local residents. There is a seal placed on the device. There is no way in which local residents can manipulate it, simply that the seals have to be there and changed when we collect the devices. As for the measurements that are made, there are following principles applied. First of all, those devices are rented free of charge for 24 hours to any resident of Krakow who is interested in renting this device. But that's very important, is that the results are not made available to everyone. It's not accredited. It's just for the information of local residents who take actually the device. So when they go back to us with the results that are higher than 50% of the norms, 7 volt, there is a need then for us to also ask the local inspectorate for environment protection and to repeat measurements by an accredited lab. If it is higher, because we had such cases, then the regional inspectorate for environment protection should simply intervene and do their studies as well. And what are the results available to the residents? First of all, whether the limits are higher than 7 volt per meter. or the level of 50% of that, whether it is actually the result is higher than that. It was our idea to go to make reference of the French actually legislation saying that no one should be in a worse situation than the neighbors. So we actually decided to use the monitoring of the regional inspectorate, and the average for the city of Krakow in the year 2016 was 0.3 volt per meter. And this is the average value, and we compare the results from different households. This refers also to Polish Civil Code, Article 144 of the code, about harmful emissions higher than the average. So we simply concluded that the average for Krakow was 0.3 volt, and if anyone in a household which was higher, they could take this case to a civil court. For higher than 7, local administration inspectorate would have to intervene. Local residents can choose where exactly to place the device. Then there is the final result for 24 hours for the whole house. The places where the average were the highest, where they were the lowest, whether there are any places in which the norm of 7 volt per meter was exceeded. It's a very good practice actually that is being used. The router devices are switched on, switched off. The devices making measurements at different locations to simply check the situation in different parts of the household. And now, in concrete terms, what have we noticed here? 3 different groups, as if, of people who asked for those devices. First of all, we've got a problem of those who live very close to a base station, usually opposite the street, located opposite the windows. So here, for instance, we can see in this map flat and the axis of radiation going straight there into the house. And the average here was 4.7 for 24 hours, and at different times it was higher than 7 volts per meter. Here, what is interesting is that the operator itself actually confirmed, an accredited company. Also, it was confirmed also by the regional inspectorate, but then nothing actually happened in practice. The only thing that could be done actually was to ask the operator to decrease the output power. It was done for a short period of time, and then after some time actually the output power would be made higher again. Then the residents would again rent dosimeters, and unfortunately not much changes. This is roughly what we are doing at the moment. In spite of the interventions of our councillors of the city of Krakow, we are not able actually to punish, for instance, the operator for increasing those frequencies. This is an extreme case, of course. Then the second interesting case, because again, we very much depend simply on who actually comes to us asking for the device. We had a couple actually living under a base station. Over their living room there is a base station right above their heads, as if these are people advanced age, so they just put in one place the dosimeter, and there were measurements over 24 hours, and here we have results 24 hours measurements. The different colors relate to the source of signal. Not everything is clearly visible, but they actually all come. This is signal from the base station located above their heads. Actually, whenever people are wondering whether to have, if they could have a say whether to have a base station or not, people often claim that they would be protected, as if umbrella effect. But actually, this was not the case. The average here was 1.7 volt per meter, which again goes back to a number of factors. Also, the reflection that was mentioned in one of the previous presentations, dense buildings in the urban area in Krakow, and such deflection is very frequent.
The third measurement was made at the house of a resident who does not live right next to the base station, but close enough to the base station so that the signal from his mobile to uplinking to the station is not very high, because those green impulses are the impulses of the smartphone, which is on, and some kind of transmission occurs. Someone was sending emails, browsing the web, And even though this mobile was working all the time, and even though the base station was not very close, but neither was it very far, this level did not reach a very high level because it was only 0.184 volt per meter square of this resident's apartment. So here it is worth thinking about the fact that whether you are too far from the base station or whether you're too close to the base station, it will be harmful in both cases. So either you get a very high signal from your mobile or you get a high signal from the base station. And as a pilot project, we tested several schools in Krakow. We assumed a methodology where we would use two dosimeters in parallel, and the measurement took one lesson in the classroom. And we selected three cases. So the base station is in the direct neighborhood of the school. Here you can actually see the beam crossing the school's building. That is actually the after-school room. And inside that school, with the windows closed, the level was 0.7, almost 0.8 volt per meter. Then the second case is a group of schools where the base stations are located on the roof of the school building. This is very frequent in Krakow. And here I made a broader analysis because I can see that this dosimeter was carried to a new room every hour. The first measurement was in a place where the beam is not crossing that place, nor is it right below the base station, but you can see the signal from the mobile phone and from a router. The signal is quite low. The second item is a classroom right under the base station, and then the value was reached of 0.2 volts per meter. The third measurement was taken on the football field, on a playground for children next to the school, which was further away but almost exactly in the main beam, and there the value was 0.7 volts per meter. And then we used the third example of a school. This is a school where there is a ban on the use of mobile phones in school, and here you can see very nice results. This school is not right next to any base station, although the base stations are not very far from it, because you couldn't find a place like that in Krakow. But here the level is very low. We've got single impulses where a phone logs into the network, and the level came out as 0.02 volt per meter. So in extremely short words, because we don't have complete results yet, people were so interested that we're still taking measurements at residents' flats. The full report will only be available in December, but this knowledge will definitely, it already has allowed us to identify the sources, and it will allow us to find the guilty party, because most frequently it is either us or the base station on the other side of the line, as it were. But at least this measurement clearly specifies who emits the magnetic fields. So this is it from me, and I want to thank you very much.